Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. Today I'm going to go over the Old Town Autopilot, specifically the 136 model. So it's a 13.5 foot kayak. It comes with a trolling motor from the factory, and it's probably one of the most requested kayaks out there. We get asked about it a lot here at the shop. I get asked about it online, and there's always been a lot of curiosity around this kayak. So it's been around for a couple of years now. Does the Autopilot still hold that value in 2024 with a lot of the newer kayaks coming out? A lot of them are rigged up specifically for motorization, both bow and stern. And again, I always like to compare it to Old Town being like that grandparent that you always like to go over, that always gave you candy whenever you wanted to. A lot of those anglers out there wanted that trolling motor on a kayak, and they said, sure, why not? They designed a kayak for that specific need with the trolling motor in the center, which is kind of unique. And I'm definitely not going to knock Old Town for listening to their customers, because quite frankly, I think a lot more companies should do the same. But anyways, we're going to go over this kayak from bow to stern. Stay tuned to the end of the video. I'll go over my thoughts on it, and should you consider the Autopilot in 2024, and I'll go over some other options that you may want to consider when looking at this kayak as well, just for comparison's sake. Anyways, guys, let's get right into it. Okay, real quick, before I get into the kayak, I'm gonna go over the specs, the boring stuff. So the MSRP for 2024, specifically the Autopilot 136, is $4,999. So keep in mind that does come with the kayak motor. It does not come with the battery, but it does come with foot-controlled steering direct from the factory, a really, really good seat. So they use they call it a dual layer textiline. So they've got a little center mesh layer that it gives you a little bit more padding without affecting the breathability of the seat, the ability to breathe. Again, that's always a big deal, especially in the hot summers, or if you're wet, it allows that air to pass through and you're not sitting in a hot, skunky seat. I've always been a big fan of Old Town seating. So I've been in a big water 132 before, and a couple of the Sportsman series. And again, I like the frame seat. It's very comfortable. It's very well made. So the kayak does come with a saltwater ready trolling motor. So again, that's a really big deal, because the saltwater ready, that tends to give a little bit more of a durability factor even if you're just in freshwater primarily, and it makes it to where you don't have to get an additional motor to run those saltwaters. It does come with spot lock, which is really, I mean, let's be honest with you, that's why a lot of us put trolling motors on kayaks anyway, specifically the Motor Guide XI3. This is the Minn Kota. It does have some differences between this kayak motor and what a lot of you are looking at with the XI3. So the Motor Guide XI3 is a 55-pound thrust motor. This is a 45-pound thrust. So the only thing that I would wonder is how the 10 less pounds of thrust will move a kayak 150 plus pounds. A lot of people that I've talked to, you are lacking a little bit in speed, but you are getting a lot of that convenience because it is closer to you, it is accessible, and there's a lot of features on this kayak that cater around that motor. You do have 4 18-inch tracks installed from the factory. That's plenty of room for additional accessories. There's a lot of other mounting points, which the kayak I'm going to go over with has the yak power. It's got all kinds of additional stuff that do not come from the factory, so keep that in mind. If you have any questions, let me know down in the comments. But again, you're getting the rudder, you're getting the foot steering, the motor, do not have the battery. And again, really the only thing on here that is on this kayak that doesn't come from the factory is the lighting specifically. Assembled boat weight on the 136 is 158 pounds. So that does put it above the Pro Angler series. And again, assembled, that does include the motor. So keep that in mind. And usable weight capacity. So usable weight capacity has always been a little bit of a point of contention with people, but they do list it on their website, which again, big props to Old Town for being upfront about that at least. But they do list it as I believe a 600 plus pound weight capacity, but their usable weight capacity is 502 pounds. So that's once it's fully rigged up, that is paddler or peddler or fisherman plus gear, but 502 pounds on this kayak is more than enough to rig it up, to include your battery on there, to have all the fishing gear that you own with you, which that's why a lot of us buy these really large fishing kayaks. So let's get into the features of the boat. I'll go over these really quick, and then I'll give my thoughts here toward the end of the video, guys. Okay, guys, so what I'm going to do, I'm going to start here at the front. So one thing I really do like, it does have that solid, it is a plastic handle, but it's not molded in, but it is something that I would probably feel comfortable using as a tie down. It is a little easy on the hands. The one curious thing about this boat design that I'll go over, and I'll just kind of go with this up front, is the lack of storage. So I like a wide open deck space personally, but this little hatch here is really more or less just for access. It's not really something that you can store a whole lot of stuff in. I've seen people rig it up to kind of put some smaller items in there, but I would have liked to have seen them maybe take the handle and turn it crossways here and then kind of open this deck space up a little bit more. A lot like a New Canoe Unlimited, and I'm not trying to sell this against the Unlimited, but a lot of people are big fans, especially when you're running a trolling motor. But it is what it is. It's there. It's not super convenient for storage, but if you need to access something in there, you can do that. Namely, just if you have any problems with the wiring or need to do anything with that, it does give you the ability to do so. Right up here, again, the star of the show, the belle of the ball, is the Minn Kota 45-pound thrust motor. Two things that I'm huge fan of. One, you've got this little pulley here that gives you the ability to pull it up and deploy it. And then also you've got a really nice kill switch underneath there as well, in addition to the kill switch by the seat that you'll have attached to yourself, an additional safety measure. So if this does hit something and it pops it up, it's going to kill that motor immediately, which is, again, that's going to save you a lot of money in the long run. If you're scared of hitting stumps or any kind of hazards underneath there, it will have the ability to kick up like that. Quick disconnect here, which is really nice. And again, I'm a huge fan of the quick disconnect plate here. Once you deploy it up, you just pop that and you can pop the motor right out of there once you unplug it. This is really useful if you're carrying a lot of stuff and you need to do it in stages, or if you got it in the back of your truck and you don't want your motor just sitting out there in the open. Moving forward, really nice track padding on there. Again, I'm a huge fan of open deck space, and you've got a lot of that here. So you do have foot controlled steering for the rudder. The foot pegs are adjustable forward and backward, in addition to being able to steer it. So it does kind of give you that adjustability for us taller people, or those of you that may have a little shorter inseam. You can adjust the foot pedals forward and backward, in addition to being able to steer that. Another thing that I really like that Old Town does is they have kind of this one-way valve for your scupper plug. So it allows water to get out, doesn't allow it to come up. That's kind of a neat design. Once they sit in there for a while, they can get a little hard to remove, but I like the fact that they do that. It definitely is unique. And another thing that I love that they do is you have the forward-facing rod holder. So that's perfect if you want to stick that rod in there, you got that fish, you want to take that picture, or the simplest thing is, if you're just wanting to change out your bait or your lures, that gives you the ability to put that pole down. A lot of us carry those expensive setups out on the lakes. That is just one less thing to drop out of your hands, and it gives you two hands to do that. Again, I consider that a safety thing, because you got two hands trying to take something with treble hooks or sharp hooks off instead of just one. This guy here that traded this in, he does have the Yak Power module. So he installed that where the other rod holder was there. Again, you can customize these kayaks up quite a bit. He's even got the control module installed below the battery box there, which is really nice as well. You do have the high-low option on the seat, which is nice, and the seat is great. I love their premium seats. Not all their kayaks have that same seat setup, but like the Autopilot and the Big Water, they have a great frame seat setup. Even some of the Sportsmans have a pretty good seat as well. It's wide, it's adjustable, and it's got that cushion while still allowing it to breathe, like I said in the intro there. Really nice little option on the side. So it's got like a little map pocket type thing where you can store some gear, and then you flip it open. This is a perfect place to keep your control module for your motor or anything else, junk lures, anything like that, and cup holders. So we've all got cup holders on majority of our kayaks, but this kayak specifically has those deep cup holders for those of us that like to run those 30+ ounce tumblers. You've got them on both sides. That's perfect, and it's a perfect placement for it too. Again, one of those simple things that just really moves the needle with me personally. Okay, so on this kayak, again, there's some other things on here that aren't stock. So when you peel the seat back, there's a really large battery box in there that this guy had put in there, but it does have a really nice battery box that sinks into the hull. The draw on the amp draw on the motor is really, it's been measured at about 33 amps at top speed. So that makes it where you really don't have to have that really large 100 amp hour battery on there. You could probably do with about a 50 or 60 amp hour lithium battery. It's going to be a small package. You're not going to have a lot of problem fishing that in there, but just know if you got a lead acid battery or larger battery, space is a little limited on that. Okay, so we've got a train going back behind here, so if you hear that, you hear a horn, that's what that is. I'll kind of finish this up here real quick. The most impressive thing, besides the motor to me personally, is all of this space you have back here. The 136 has an enormous, or probably, honestly, one of the biggest tank wells I've seen on a kayak, which those of you that want to run that really large black pack 16x16, I would be surprised if you couldn't run two 16x16 Blackpack Pros back here. That's how large this is. You do have the flip-up rudder, which on the side you've got the lever that goes forward and backward for up and down. And again, you've got the foot control steering. Another thing that I love about this kayak is it's got the inserts for your micro power pole, and it's even got the little hole through the hull that you can, again, install that, kind of a clean setup on that. You've actually got those holes on both sides, but you got the threaded inserts from the factory on just one side there. And the rudder is really large, which that really gives, especially a kayak this size and this heavy, that gives you a much more manageable and maneuverable kayak, especially for this size, especially the amount of travel you have from right to left. So that gives you, again, tighter turning radiuses, and it's where a lot of your really large kayaks fall short for handling. But honestly, the things that impressed me the most about this kayak, one, the build quality. You know, Old Town has got one of the best rotomolded processes, and they've been doing it for years. I mean, just decades and decades. This one is really no slouch. A thicker boat, a lot like your Natives as well, and Jacksons. Thicker boats do make heavier boats, so it does, you know, you really need to pay attention to how are you going to transport this. At this weight and this length, this really borders on a primarily trailered kayak, and a lot of people do that on these. Trailering a kayak, they sell a lot of brands out there. Jet ski trailers are another good option because the hubs on the wheels are sealed. That's something that we tell our customers a lot as well. You can get the old utility trailers at your box stores and things like that, but those hubs are not sealed, and when you submerge them a lot, that's really going to break down over time, and it's going to be a pretty quick process on that. But guys, I really like this kayak. Personally, you know, big, heavy, flat water kayaks are no stranger to the industry, but this one in particular, especially when this kayak came out, it was really ahead of its time. So does that hold up to today's market? Because there's a lot of other kayaks out there that have kind of jumped on the motorization bandwagon. May not be coming from the factory with the motor on it, but for the value, so I'm going to go over a couple of things with this kayak versus what's out there. Should you be looking at this kayak in 2024 and beyond, or are they needing to innovate this a little bit more? Okay, so I'm going to just kind of go over quick thoughts, and I'm going to talk about the value. So does the Autopilot hold a great value? Well, of course it does. It's got a trolling motor in the middle. A lot of people buy it because of that, just primarily. Where it's at is very convenient. It gives, the pulley system that deploys and raises the motor is really, really convenient. So it keeps you from having to rig something up crazy to get the motor in and out of the water. Now, as far as value goes, at $5,000, it's really kind of on the upper echelon of pricing on kayaks. It doesn't have the pedal drive with it, so it is primarily just a motorized kayak. So when you're comparing it to, say, the NuCanoe Unlimited with an XI3 on it, can you rig one of those up and be in around the same price point? And then also the Bonafide PWR 129. Again, these kayaks are both 12.5 foot long, so it's a full foot shorter, but you're looking at rigging up a Bonafide PWR or a NuCanoe Unlimited, rigging it up completely, set up with a motor, and I'm talking about without battery because the Autopilot does not come with the battery. You're looking at rigging those up for around $3,500, $3,700 range, and honestly, for value-wise, that's a little different. Plus, you're getting a 55-pound thrust motor with the XI3. You're still getting your spot lock, and you're getting a wide open deck space. Now, if you're a fan of Old Town's products, which I am, American made, again, they've been doing it pretty much longer than anybody out there. It does hold a lot of value. There's a lot of good storage options, although I wish they could do a little bit different on the storage. NuCanoe is the same way, is where you don't, it's pretty much open deck space, flat space, and a lot of people like that setup. The PWR gives you a little bit of a different setup with the front hatch storage, and then still having quite a bit of stand-up space, but people are still flocking to that open deck space. And with the NuCanoe Unlimited, you get it right on the bow, so the motor is not cluttering up the deck so much. So again, whether this is a good value for you, that's really for you to decide and what your needs are. But the people that have the Autopilot absolutely love them. Minn Kota, just like Motor Guide, it's a premium brand, and it is a premium motor with it being saltwater ready. So what do you guys think? Let me know down in the comments below. Do you own an Autopilot? What are some of your complaints about the Autopilot? And what are some of the things you love about it? Because there's no shortage of people that love this kayak. The people that have them, they've had them for a long period of time. Sometimes they upgrade to a different setup because needs do change. But again, this is probably one of the kayaks that turned the market upside down. It really changed the way kayaks are made, and designers are thinking out the process on how people are rigging these kayaks up once they take them from the factory. The Autopilot just takes several of those steps out of the equation. So you're just getting a battery, getting your fish finder, your electronics on, your lighting, and you're set to go. So anyways, guys, thank you so much for watching the video. We'll try to get this out on the water unless this thing sells. This thing here, I've got $29.99 on this thing, so $2,999 for a 21 model. I don't expect to have this for very long. Anyways, let me know what you think down in the comments below, and we'll see you on the next video, guys.